good day. It's the most wonderful time of the year for some, and also the most embarrassing time of the year for David Marshall. Everyone has stepped onto the pitch at Euro 2020. Who has disappointed? Who has impressed? Is it 2020 or 2021? It seems altogether very confusing. France and Italy look good. Poland and Scotland, not so much. Germany and Portugal look average. Alvaro Morata gets criticized. Marko Arnautovic gets banned, and Christian Eriksen continues to get better in a Copenhagen hospital. That's where we'll start today after one of the most harrowing days in football this century. That is today on the Footy Pod. I welcome in my co-host, Greg Caltavanis. Greg, as much as I want to have a good time and shoot the shit, let's say, about what's happened so far at Euro 2020 or Euro 2021, we have to start where I ended the intro there. Christian Eriksen suffered cardiac arrest on the pitch in the game against Finland. He was resuscitated, given CPR on the pitch in what was the longest 13 minutes of video coverage. We'll get to whether the images should have even been broadcast to us, Greg, but just as someone who follows football, even talking to people who don't, it was truly one of the more traumatizing days that we've spent watching sports. Just what were your impressions watching that game?
Yeah, that was just difficult to watch, those images, seeing Eriksen, go down. So important to the Danish team, and just to see him go down like that, it was extremely difficult. You mentioned it, about the broadcasting. There's continue to show those images. Good thing the players, kind of stepped in, formed that human wall around him. The Finnish fans threw their flags down to further cover him. On the bright side of things, you did see some excellent leadership from Simon Kjær, who administered CPR to him. Kasper Schmeichel consoling his wife at the same time. So there were some Danish players that really rose to the occasion. I know it's an extremely difficult time for them, and for them to show that type of leadership was truly impressive and absolutely necessary, arguably saved his life. The good news here, and honestly the only news I think we should really focus on, is that he is in a hospital. He is in a stable condition. He is getting better. Seems to be in good spirits from what I'm reading, what I'm seeing online. That's all that matters right now. The last thing I will say, I think UEFA completely dropped the ball on this one. You have Peter Schmeichel, Kasper Schmeichel's father, saying something like, it is absolutely ridiculous that they only gave him two options. Either you continue the game on Saturday or on Sunday. The Danish coach himself said something very similar, saying like, hey, you could postpone a game for COVID for 2 days, but if a player suffers a cardiac arrest, the show must go on. I found that to be a bit ridiculous. The more and more I think about it, it's just not right. It kind of reminded me of when the Dortmund bus got attacked, and then they went back and they continued playing. Not good enough all around from UEFA.
Yeah, just the incident itself. I mean, I was in studio at the radio station, enjoying a morning, listening to Bocelli's Nessun Dorma on repeat about 30 times. That was one of the most beautiful ways start the entire tournament. And I was on a phone call with a bunch of buddies who are some English supporters, some Scottish supporters, and we were trash talking. And then all of a sudden, I looked over and I saw the ring being formed around Eriksen. So I had no idea what was going on. And again, for people who don't follow football every week, I mean, you and I have watched Christian Eriksen play. I mean, you most recently this year in Italy, you cover Serie A more than anyone else I know. But I watched him play for Tottenham as well. He's the talisman of that team. He's the leader. He's the go-to guy, the guy that they need when the game is counted upon. And then to just watch him crumble like that, and then, I mean, who's to know in terms of medical tests and how something like this gets missed. But I think that the lasting image will be that ring of Danish teammates stuck in between shock and distress, watching their brother, who they've grown up with, playing with, like in the Danish teams coming up, someone that they've known for so long, and to have his life hang in the balance. The team physician saying that he was gone. They had to bring him back with the defibrillator, and it was really a traumatic experience. I mean, not only for the players, obviously much more so, but I think for anyone watching. I mean, when do we see images like that? And it was. I remember just having my hand over my mouth and saying a quick prayer and hoping that Christian Eriksen would be fine. And again, yes, like you said, he released a statement and a picture from hospital yesterday, thanking the fans, saying that he's doing better and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the scheduling itself was incredibly callous. The scheduling to force those players, and again, they made it seem like UEFA always does, that this was a brotherhood moment. This was players wanting to play for their brother who had stopped, who had encouraged them to go out there and finish it for the country, for the team, and then to find out, like you said, through Peter Schmeichel, that that's complete bullshit. Is that they were basically given the chance to either do it again tomorrow with almost no sleep or get it done in the afternoon, instead of maybe trying to have some kind of a heart for what these players had really gone through there. And of course, they were not even partially in the game against Finland when it restarted. But yeah, that was incredibly callous. For the images itself, I've been thinking about this again. We're recording this on Wednesday in the middle of the day, so we've had a couple days to digest what happened. I imagine like what would happen if we saw the images of Tiger Woods' car being rolled over. Now, I'm just comparing the two in terms of TV broadcasting and what's the right thing to do, because that's a lot of broadcasters have been kind of jumping through hoops saying we didn't know how to deal with the situation. You can broadcast the images if there was a live image of Tiger Woods' SUV rolling over, because that's the shock, that's the feeling, and there's no control over that. You just happen to be there at that time, and you have to kind of diagnose that situation and let your viewers know what's happening. But when you can see the man's life is in the balance, when CPR is being administered, that is when you cut away. I mean, I don't think it's a very big gray area that people are kind of making it out to be, tripping over one another. You have to show the images because people want to know what happened. But to be there and watch, I mean, the face of Thomas Delaney, I'll have that ingrained in my mind forever, turning away from his friend because he can't watch it, but he's just breaking down. That's when you cut away. That's when you find something else to do. You throw back to Gary Lineker in studio or whoever it is. I mean, that's really, I think, where the debate begins and ends for me.
Absolutely. And just, I can't add anything else on that side of the debate. The only thing I will say is that the constant panning to his wife and kid, that was completely overboard. It's 100% the hardest moment that they're enduring in their entire life. And that goes for the wife, the kid, and their whole team. Pretty much everyone in that stadium at the same time, I get from a broadcasting point of view, it's not easy. In the heat of the moment, you don't know what to do. But this dilemma is as simple as what's right and what's wrong, and it's clearly wrong. So just get out of there, offer your support, move on. If there's updates about the situation, provide all the information to your viewers that you need about the situation as it develops. But beyond that, put an end to it, move on, let them focus on getting better. So yeah, a bit ridiculous. It's a bit crazy that we're even having this discussion at this point in time. We have seen this happen, not often enough, but you have the Muamba situation, Pier Mario Morosini in Italy. So it's not exactly common, but it does happen. And for them to be completely unprepared, that's where I draw the line, frankly.
All right, there's no easy way to transition from what was, my goodness, to start match day 2. I mean, that's the third game of the tournament right there. I was thinking it's just you cannot help that. As much as sports tries to block out and distract us from what's happening in life, life finds a way to get in the way in the most, let's say, positive way that I can say that. I know I'm stumbling over my words right now, but it's a very strange thing to get over, and to have that kind of happen on day 2 of the competition. I mean, nothing else that's going to happen is going to compare to what happened there to Christian Eriksen, and thank God he's just all right, because that was scary for everyone. Let's try and get through what else was going on throughout the weekend or the week. Everyone has played a game. Greg, we've all seen somebody play. We've seen somebody lose. Someone, you know what? Not a lot of draws, which is kind of surprising. I'm wondering when that's going to
Yeah, I know.
But
See, that was interesting.
we'll move away from Finland and Denmark because there's not really much you could say about that game after that. But let's get to the first game of the tournament, Greg. Italy versus Turkey, 3-0 win for the Italians. You must have been absolutely fired up. My question, I guess, is I heard a lot of people praising Italy, and rightly so. It's their biggest win to start a competition. But were Italy that good, or were Turkey that bad?
So I think it's a bit of both. At the end of the day, I was extremely happy to see Italy translate their form from the European qualifiers into this tournament. I mean, that was the biggest question mark heading in. You know, you see the Azzurri absolutely rolling over opposition in friendlies, beating the Czech Republic 4-0 just a week before, and you ask yourself, okay, when it's time to step up, will they do it? And they absolutely did pass the test with flying colors. Midfield looked great. Offense was free-flowing. Chiellini and Bonucci had Yilmaz completely shut down. But at the end of the day, and like I've told my friends, like I've told anyone, I do think that this game will ultimately fall on Şenol Güneş, the Turkish coach, because I understand that they go through the entire qualifying campaign having only conceded 3 goals with a defensive identity and always looking to hit the team on the counter. But he completely abandoned that in the second half. So in the first half, Turkey, you know, they're completely sitting back in a deep block. It was extremely hard to find space in the middle of the park for Italy. Yeah, they dominated possession, but they weren't creating much outside of a set piece here and there. And then at halftime, in hopes of getting that goal, in hopes of sparking that little, you know, that fire in the offensive third, Güneş completely abandoned that system, went for a more proactive system, and that's where Italy completely picked them apart and the game opened up. So, you know, not staying true to your team's identity and values, I think it ended up costing Turkey. Overcoming, you know, -3 in the goal difference column is going to be extremely difficult for them. I know that the best third place team qualifies, so they obviously have a chance if they get a result with Wales. Game's playing as we speak right now. They are down 1-0 right now to Wales. Aaron Ramsey just scored, just for some context to the viewers there. But it's not looking great for this Turkish team right now.
Yeah, I think I just expected a lot more from Turkey in their opening game. Again, I was only able to kind of watch this game from a distance because I was working at the time, but I saw the highlights afterwards. And the thing that I just expected was a lot more Turkish solidity, like you said, defensively. And it didn't seem like they were able to get that counterattack going whatsoever against the Italians. And if anything, it confirmed to you and I, who both, I think, have Italy in our finals, because we just believe that they have the right mix of everything going forward. It kind of just confirmed where I felt the Italians were, but I was only expecting a draw. I don't know how many goals I was expecting on either side, but I expected a draw between the two teams. So for Italy to start the campaign off like that, I mean, it's all about confidence right now, and I think that they've taken down the most difficult challenge in their group, and I can only imagine that now it gives Roberto Mancini maybe a chance to tinker with something, throw somebody else out there that hasn't got a shot as of yet, and then he'll really get to know who his preferred players are going forward. And nice also to see Domenico Berardi being justified for being picked ahead of Federico Chiesa. That was the real dilemma. What was going to happen on the right of that front three, and he absolutely delivered for the Italian side.
Absolutely, absolutely. At first, I wanted to see Chiesa. Before the tournament started, I definitely wanted to see Chiesa. I just thought he was built for those big moments, having played at Juve. But then the minute I saw this Italian team attack in the final third and the intricacies of their movement, having Berardi on the pitch from the get-go just makes more sense from a tactical point of view, from a balance point of view in the attack, because he drifts inwards, Barella goes outwards and occupies that right space. The right fullback overlaps, and suddenly Italy has a 5-pronged attack with Berardi and Insigne just, you know, lingering in the midfield. So I think we're absolutely more dangerous with Berardi on right wing. Chiesa's the type of player that you're going to want to play against tired legs. He's the type of winger to take on his man more often, stretch the opposition. And with the way Italy's playing, with the way Mancini wants him to attack, you know, completely justifiable to give Berardi the nod ahead of him.
And a tip of the hat to left wingback Spinazzola, who was terrific as well for the Italians. Definitely justifying, or I think solidifying, his place in the starting 11 going forward. Let's get. I'd like to talk about Wales and Switzerland, but my goodness, that was anti-football for a very long time. That was rough. That was the first game I think this tournament, Greg, where I actually went and said, maybe something else is on. Because my goodness, that was a tough one to take. So we'll move past it. I think if you want to get the Coles notes of that, I expected kind of that, let's say, bad form from the Welsh. Did not expect that from Switzerland. So we'll see if they're able to rebound a little bit.
Yeah, that was a drab affair. I mean, I expected Switzerland to be solid and all with their experience through the middle, from center back to goalkeeper to the midfield to Mbolo, Shaqiri, and Seferovic. But if they want to progress out of this group, they're going to need to be better than that. Big game coming up against Italy at 3:00 here Eastern time. So they're gonna have to show up, or they risk an early exit.
And let's be honest, Italy are going to win that game. Let's continue here onto the rest of the pod. Belgium 3, Russia 0. Romelu Lukaku shakes off what must have been an unbelievably difficult day for him because, as we said earlier, Inter Milan teammate Christian Eriksen collapsed on the pitch, and he dedicated his 2-goal performance to his friend. Very, very touching moment to go to the camera. Chris, I love you, into the camera after scoring his first goal. But I'm just watching Lukaku play, and there was no De Bruyne. Hazard came in as a sub, and again, it's difficult to get a read on Belgium because we all expected them to do very well against Russia. But Lukaku, for me, he's the closest thing in the modern day to Didier Drogba. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong, Eamon. He definitely holds up play extremely well. He gets in behind extremely well, threat on set pieces. The comparisons are there. I think the one aspect of his game that he was lacking in the past was bringing his teammates into play. Drogba was sensational at that, combining with Lampard and whoever was playing behind him or alongside him. Lukaku kind of didn't have that at Manchester United. Playing under Conte at Inter in a two-man system alongside Lautaro Martinez really brought those qualities out of him. So it was really nice to see him kick off the tournament on the right foot. I know Serie A fans have been seeing him do this week in, week out, so it's nice to see him translate that on the world's biggest stage. He's a good shout for the Golden Boot. Belgium have a weak-ish group. Big game coming up against Denmark, but we all expect them to progress out of this group. Interesting to see that they did all of this without De Bruyne. They completely dominated the game in possession. I know Russia's not the best team at the tournament, coming off a big win over Finland today. But yeah, I mean, for me, the main guy who stood out beyond Lukaku was definitely Yuri Tielemans in the middle of the park. He was absolutely phenomenal, pulling all the right strings. He was playing next to Den Donker. Obviously, Den Donker sits deeper, and he allows Tielemans to get forward. But he bossed that game from start to finish, whether he was aware of his surroundings before he received the ball, whether he was playing those line-breaking passes into Mertens, into Lukaku. He was phenomenal. And it's no surprise to me that Leicester City want to lock him down to a long-term contract in the coming weeks.
And like you said, in that midfield, because there was no De Bruyne and no Axel Witsel, you got to see a little bit of a different thing from Roberto Martinez's men. Different, not necessarily different formation, but different personnel. And I think it kind of exposed what is going to be the depth of this Belgian side. I mean, again, on that side of the bracket, we have Italy going through to the final. But I mean, the Belgians, it's going to come down to whether they crack at the most inopportune time. Now, we spoke about the back five or the back three or whatever the hell you want to call it for Belgium. Weren't exactly troubled by the Russian mountain that is what's his name again?
Artem Zuba.
That's right. They just chucked the ball on every play. That's right. Chuck the ball up to him. Hope he's not offside, and if he heads it down to you, all the better. So we didn't get really a chance to really dig into Alderweireld, and it was Boyata who was in instead of which was kind of a shock. He did okay. Vertonghen in as well. So we didn't get a chance to see them really get challenged all that much. But you just saw a glimpse of the depth that the Belgians have with Carrasco as well on the left. And I mean, not that I like the fact that Castagna went off injured, but I think that Meunier is the right choice as the right wing back, and he comes on and scores a goal, and that basically kind of will solidify his spot in the starting 11. So I think it was just a routine victory for the Belgians. They looked very comfortable. They did what they had to do. And to be quite frank, to start the competition, that's all you really want for a team that has been so up and down, so unpredictable at the most inopportune moments so far at these events. And then to get Hazard some legs in, and then Kevin De Bruyne coming back from that injury sustained in the Champions League final. I think that that can only do well for them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, before the tournament started, I was definitely looking at game number 2 against Denmark as their biggest test. That goes without saying. Denmark just have the second best team in this group, and initially pegged them as a dark horse for this tournament to go deep. Obviously, following what the Saturday's harrowing events, it's going to be you no longer know what to expect from Denmark, and that's completely fine. Their minds and their focus is going to be elsewhere, and that's okay. But in my opinion, if Denmark shows up to play, that'll be Belgium's first real test. It'll arguably be their hardest test until the quarterfinals, because if they top that group, they should have a very winnable opponent in the round of 16 before the big quarterfinal matchup against Italy, whoever it is. So yeah, for me, it's all about Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Boyata, Denayer. Can they hold it up? Obviously, Thibaut Courtois could steal you a game, and I've mentioned that time and time again watching them play. He's really silenced his doubters with a very strong season at Real Madrid after a little bit of an inconsistent start. They have all the makings to go deep, but can they put it all together? Belgium at one point or another, you mentioned they have cracked losing that semifinal game at the World Cup. So it's tough to say right now. They passed the first test with flying colors, much like Italy did, much like France did, and that's all you really need.
All right, let's keep it going here. Is it going home? Is it going home, Greg? England 1-0 winners over Croatia. What was a extremely disappointing Croatian team. Didn't do much of anything against England. Now Gareth Southgate made some bold calls, putting Kieran Trippier at left back. He did a fine job over there. Tyrone Mings ahead of Ben White in the back four as well. He looked okay. He didn't really put a step forward. Leaving Jadon Sancho out of the squad completely was pretty shocking, to say the least. But so far, so good for Gareth Southgate's men, because they just looked like it was very easy. To be perfectly honest, pretty boring game to be quite frank. But they got the result, and now again, it's going to come down to what happens Friday against an emotionally charged Scotland, who we'll get to a little bit later. As you can tell, we will discuss what happened with Scotland. But Greg, the Three Lions, they win their first game at a European competition. What did you make of just how they were put together? And we didn't get to see Jack Grealish. Phil Foden looked okay. And Raheem Sterling, who was kind of a guy that you didn't expect was going to be in the starting 11 based on all the quality they have out wide. Guy who ends up scoring. The main standout man, though, Leeds United, Calvin Phillips. No one knew about him going in if you're a casual fan. He bosses the midfield at Leeds United. All in all, what did you make of England?
Yeah, so I was impressed at how they handled the game, because, as you mentioned, Croatia didn't pose a threat throughout. I know it's not the same Croatian team that made it to the World Cup final, but for them to pick up all 3 points and arguably their biggest test in the group with, the minimum of us, I was impressed. Going back to the Gareth Southgate's questionable squad selection, I think at the end of the day, it's going back to what we said in the preview with Christian Jack about he's going to have to manage expectations on this team, the likes of Sancho, Grealish, Foden, Rashford, Sterling, and let them know that there are going to be moments for you to come in and you're going to have to do your job. You're going to have to step up. Raheem Sterling did just that. I think a special mention has to go to Harry Kane. Obviously, I didn't think he played his best game, but he missed a chance here and there. He was okay at linking up play, But at the end of the day, it was his dummy run that completely opened up the Croatian defense for him starting to step in. And that's exactly what you had initially wanted from Harry Kane. You wanted to see him play that provider role, drop deeper, open up space. So that was good. I think he needed that. Did they really need, the speed on the wings against a Croatian team that is really happy to sit back? And I don't think so. I know they're slower back four. They're on the older side of, they're on the wrong side of 30 other than Kaleta Kar. They could have definitely used Grealish in there. They could have definitely used Sancho in there. It was a bit strange to see him completely left off the squad. I personally would like to see an actual left back be given a run. Not that Trippier played bad, but they have two phenomenal ones in Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell. And, man, Calvin Phillips. Jeez, that Bielsa murder ball in training has paid off. It was the 80-something minute, and he was full steam ahead, showing no signs of slowing down. They absolutely needed a performance like that from one of their younger midfielders. You mentioned Phillips, Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham came, I think, the youngest 17-year-old to debut at a major tournament for England. Another phenomenal player. They needed at least one of these guys to step up early on, lead the way for the rest, lead by example for the other younger, the other younger English players. So overall, was impressed. They need to be better against Scotland. I think Scotland are going to come out all guns blazing. We'll get into the Scotland game in a minute, but I don't think they played bad against Czech Republic by any means. So it'll be a big test.
Steve Clark, Greg. But yes,
we'll get to it in a second. Where I'm going to go full out of my mind on what happened for Scotland. But yeah, for England. I think that my main concern going into this competition was they had gone through the entirety of qualifying with the two holding midfielders, and I just didn't understand them doing that against a Croatian side that I think you and I both believed could be had, because they just don't have the legs in midfield. They're all guys who just love to pass the ball around, and they don't exactly have anyone who can drive or push the play in the middle of the park. And Gareth Southgate didn't play it that way because he gave Calvin Phillips the license to do what he does best, which is initiate contact, get quickly into tackles, win the ball high up the field. He's basically a one-man midfield at Leeds United. I know Bielsa, if you look at the midfield, it says that he's the only one. They drop guys back here and there, but he's the mop-up man, probably the closest thing to, and I know this is sacrilege because he might be the best player in the world right now, N'Golo Kante. He does very similar things to what Kante does for Chelsea, where he just runs through the entire midfield, takes care of the ball, mops it up, throws it up quickly. And that was the main thing for me, is that as soon as he won the ball, he was passing the ball forward. It wasn't going backwards. It was immediately, let's press up the field. Let's get at this Croatian team. So now he's obviously going to be a nailed-on starter. It doesn't even matter whatsoever what Jordan Henderson is going to do. Calvin Phillips will be in the squad with Declan Rice. And at least that gives the platform now for Southgate to experiment, because like you said, as much as I want Scotland to get that result on Friday, and I think that they can, I still expect England to take care of the Czech Republic quite handily, even if they were to drop points against Scotland on Friday. So if anything, it just gives Gareth Southgate the chance to maybe give Jack Grealish a run out, give Marcus Rashford a start, even get Jadon Sancho in the squad, because, again, that made absolutely no sense to me. But, a comprehensive win for England, and they look like they took the right step forward to begin this tournament, and I think that's all you can ask from all of the English fans who say it's coming home, with that tinge of sarcasm that makes me laugh deep in the pit of my belly.
The only thing I will add on the Calvin Phillips dossier is that he's still very young. So, you have a performance like that. You mentioned, right now he's a nailed-on starter, but he could just as easily go into that Scotland game against a physical midfield and have a poor game. So I just want to throw caution to the wind there. He has been extremely impressive at Leeds United. I'm not taking anything away. There's a reason he started this game, and there's a reason why he's Leeds United's one of their most important players, if not their most important players, in their incredible top half finish this season. But still very young, much like Bellingham, much like Declan Rice, much like Tyrone Mings. It is a very young English side. So let's not make English media's mistake and overhype these guys just for them to have a complete stinker in game 2 or in the round of 16 when they play one of the group of death teams, probably. But yeah, it is. If I was an English fan, I would be cautiously optimistic. This team has all the makings for that deep run, but they got to get through Scotland first. So let's get through them now.
Greg, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do is overhype the English team so that they're obviously going to listen to this podcast and therefore take their foot off the pedal against Scotland. Yes, Czech Republic 2, Scotland 0. It was an absolutely boisterous Hampden Park, even though there were only about 10,000 people there. They made a hell of a lot of noise. The Flower of Scotland chant that I heard brought a tear to my eye after the fact because I was also in studio for the beginning of this match. But I'm driving home with my my good friend Michael Harriott on the horn, and we're talking about, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to get home, and what has Steve Clark done picking this squad? And all I hear is a very quiet answer from Mike Harriott saying, oh fuck, they scored. They scored from the 50-yard line. Patrick Schick with the goal of the tournament. No one else is going to get close, Greg, unless we're going to see some insane Rabona or something. But Scotland, a whole lot of strange selections by Steve Clark. I'm going to get very hard into it after you have your say. But was this a squad problem for Scotland, or are the Czechs just underestimated and did just exactly what they needed to do on the road?
So they definitely did what they needed to do. You know, they got in boisterous Hampden Park. They got the 3 points and got out. I don't think they're underestimated because I think they're properly rated, to be frank. They're not great defensively. Scotland had a number of chances. It was a clinic in poor finishing. Lyndon Dykes, Shea Adams, these guys, they had all kinds of golden opportunities to, cut into that lead, bring the game back. Andy Robertson whipped in a number of deadly crosses, as we expected from him. And they just couldn't seem to finish off their chances. I think that'll undoubtedly come back to bite them. When you look into this group, you definitely pegged Scotland's game against Czech Republic as the game they needed to win. You have games coming up now against England and against Croatia, so it's not going to be much easier for Scotland. I didn't think they played bad though. So yeah, the result was poor. The performance was not that bad. They definitely shifted into another gear when they needed to. I was expecting more from Scott McTominay. I think he had a decent second half showing, but there just wasn't enough for him out there. He wasn't progressing play enough. He wasn't dictating tempo enough. Kieran Tierney's obviously was a big miss at left center back. Definitely alters the balance there. But he should be coming back too. So I don't expect England to completely roll over Scotland. I thought I saw some very nice things from the team. Just a lack of finishing. And, David Marshall, what are you doing? You're not Manuel Neuer. But
okay. This is what I want to get into because David Marshall, I just feel so bad for this man. Okay, so let's rewind a few months ago. David Marshall is in a penalty shootout with Israel and stops multiple penalties to send Scotland to the Euros for the first time in 23 years. What does he do the first game that he gets in there? He allows something that is going to be on his tombstone. The only thing that he will ever be remembered in football the rest of his life is that meme of him tangled up in the back of that fucking net, Greg. It was just to watch it after the fact and watch it happen. I mean, I understand you want to be a cleanup and sweeper keeper, and a lot of people criticizing Jack Henry for taking a shot out from about 35 yards out. Did hit the post momentarily. But if you're Jack Henry, you don't expect that Patrick Schick is going to take one touch and drill the ball in from the 50-yard line. So I don't exactly want to get at Jack Henry for having a go in the middle of the park. Yeah, David Marshall. From now on, no matter what happens, you could be playing France and Mbappe has got 40 yards between you and the net. Stay in your 18-yard box because that basically puts a nail in the coffin of Scotland progressing out of this group. They're going to need a hell of a lot of help, and Croatia to be even worse than they were against England for them to get 3 points, because that's what it's going to take is a win against either England or Croatia. No easy task. But yes, there was a lot of wayward finishing. Lyndon Dykes, if you're going to dye your hair blonde, a la Phil Foden, a la Neymar at a major competition, you better have your shooting boots on and you better get a goal when you have multiple chances to go through. And I think that really it comes down to Steve Clark's selection. There were so many things that he did that just made no sense. He threw O'Donnell out there at right back. He comically runs into Ryan Christie while he's cutting into the 18-yard box. He ran around time and again, had a really, really difficult day. Doesn't play McGregor in the middle either. John McGinn he was okay. There were a lot of things that made no sense. And then the final one is not starting Che Adams. Che Adams, I mean, the whole point was to get someone who could run in behind defenses and be a guy who could be a physical striker who also has that ability to finish. You waited until you were 1-0 down, and then by the time that he really even got a touch of the ball, it was already 2-0 and the game was over. So I think you really have to hang the formation and squad selections and the loss on Steve Clark. Yes, they did well, and Scotland does what they always do, which is not score goals no matter how hard they try. But I think that they were undone by a whole lot of choices by their manager that didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, Steve Clark definitely like a tactical performance to forget on his end. Not starting Che Adams is completely ridiculous. As soon as he got on the field, he was already opening up space for his teammates with, he wasn't even trying. Czech Republic, that backline is there to be had. They are slow. They leave spaces. They're there to be attacked.
They played exactly the kind of football that the Czech Republic wanted them. They wanted them to chuck the ball up from 35 yards out, get a big center back to head it down, and that was it. And as soon as Scotland started playing that, that's not the way they played against Netherlands when they drew 2-2. They were actually doing some intricate passing and trying to build up through the middle. But I could spend 2 podcasts talking about what happened with Scotland against the Czech Republic. They are going to be emotionally supercharged on Friday. I do believe that they could still get a result against England because just of that emotion of playing at Wembley against your most hated rival. But they really shot themselves in the foot, and it's going to take almost a miracle for them to get out of their group now.
No, absolutely, absolutely. The last thing I'll say about Lyndon Dykes is that when I was doing my preview for that group, all I was seeing is him talking up a big game. That they just came off a 0-0 draw against Luxembourg, and he said on another night that game's 5-6-0, and I expect that to happen at the Euro. And myself, not knowing much about Lyndon Dykes, I just checked him up on transfer market, saw his scoring record wasn't great, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I see him starting with the dyed hair. Like, okay, he's got a little something about him. First chance that falls to him from a point-blank range, hits the goalie's leg. It just, at that point, I'm like, oh, all right, he's one of those. But I fully agree. I think if they get a point against England, they're setting themselves up nicely to progress. All they'll really need is a result against Croatia. They're there to be had, as we mentioned. So not the end of the world. Definitely some lessons for Steve Clark to learn.
All right, let's keep going on here. We'll go to Slovakia 2, Poland 1. Greg, if we were drawing straws for who would be, or picking names out of a hat for who would get the first red card of the Euros, Gregor Krakowiak would have been really far at the top of my list. The man just does, maybe undeserved on this night, but basically his 2 yellow cards changed the complexion of the game. Milan Skriniar of Inter Milan gets the game winner for Slovakia, 2-1 winners over Poland. Is it just as simple as the cast around Robert Lewandowski didn't do anything for him, or do you want him to be more of a central figure and someone who can I know it's not his game for Bayern Munich, but he seems to try and play the same game for Bayern Munich as he does for Poland, and the balls just never come to him.
Yeah, I do think that Poland's supporting cast lacks talent to really make a difference outside of Piotr Zielinski. And, that team is just simply not good enough around Robert Lewandowski. Obviously, you expect a player like that to do a bit more at a major tournament. I know that, it shouldn't all fall on him. He's a striker that revolves around service, and he, quite frankly, didn't get that. On the other side of things, I think it would be far too reductive to blame either Poland or Lewandowski himself without mentioning Slovakia. I thought they defended really well. Obviously, with Milan Skriniar back there, forget his goal. He hardly put a foot wrong. He was the best defender in Serie A this season, and we saw exactly why. I thought that their wingers closed down space exceptionally well, other than on that goal where they kind of went to sleep right after the half. But credit to Slovakia, man. I think no one had them progressing from this group, and they go out there and have an extremely solid first half. Obviously, they come back in that second half, concede that early goal. Krikoviak's red card, completely changes the game, and they pick up that second goal with a beautiful volley from Skriniar. So they did what they had to do. Robert Mack completely impressed me. Marek Hamšík, Andrej Duda, that was just a clinic in maintaining possession, in tracking back and closing down the spaces. Good for Slovakia. Really didn't expect that. And I think that definitely played a part in Lewandowski having no influence on this game whatsoever.
All right, let's move on. We're going to get back to something that I almost skipped over, Netherlands 3, Ukraine 2. But we'll start with what was kind of surprisingly the most boring game so far of the tournament. Spain 0, Sweden 0. Is it too easy for me to say that Alexander Isak of Sweden definitely emerged and definitely put on a clinic before Berg somehow squandered one of the opportunities of the tournament and would have been probably the assist of the tournament from Alexander Isak, because he just ran his way through a very decent Spanish side all by himself. And then he gives the ball to the guy with gives the ball to Berg with the net wide open, and somehow he fires it wide. And then on the other side, Alvaro Morata does absolutely nothing. Gerard Moreno gets in, has a header on goal, and that was really it for Spain. Is it too easy for me to say one striker disappointed and one striker emerged in that Sweden-Spain game that had no goals?
No, I think that's absolutely true. You look at the way Sweden played this game. They definitely had no intentions of attacking. They had 14% possession on the whole game. They just wanted that moment of brilliance from Alexander Isak, and they almost got it. Marcos Llorente clearing it off the post after a beautiful finish to maintain his composure after beating his man and beating a good goalkeeper in Unai Simon. So I was impressed there. Obviously, the Marcus Berg chance leaves, that was just disappointing to see. Put it on a plate for the big man. Couldn't get the job done. And then you have Alvaro Morata, who at the end of the day, he will be scapegoated for his misses, for his poor performance. But beyond him, moving aside from him, and I do think all the criticism leveled towards him is completely justified. But at the end of the day, Spain could keep the ball all they want, but they just lack that cutting edge. I think that's why Luis Enrique inserted players like Dani Olmo in the lineup, a player like Pedri in the lineup, Koke in the lineup, over a player like Thiago, a deep line playmaker, because these are players that operate higher up the pitch. Upon rewatching that game, maybe a player like Thiago could have broke that line for them. That's where he excels at, those little dinks over the top. That's absolutely what they needed. If you could take any player from past Spanish teams and put him on this team, obviously you'd have to go with striker, because right now they're crying out for one, like the Fernando Torres, the Rauls, the Morientes of the world. But beyond obviously the Xavis and the Iniestas, how useful would a Fabregas type be on this roster right now to just unlock pack defensive? That's all they're really missing. I have faith that Olmo will eventually score, that Ferran Torres will eventually score. But that cutting edge, it's not something that you just gain over I guess you could gain it over the tournament, but might be too little too late for them.
Even could be potentially two guys who are at home, who are in Isco and Saul, who could even do something like that. But yeah, I was kind of surprised how quickly they seemed to run out of ideas. You could kind of tell from the 70th minute that this was going to be the way the game was going to go. There was no way they were going to break down a Sweden team who just lined up 11 men behind the ball. And like you said, did absolutely nothing offensively. So I think that their next game probably is a little bit of an easier thing for them. That I don't expect the same defensive solidity, but maybe what Spain are missing are guys who aren't necessarily on the squad. I think watching that game as well, I thought of how nice it would be to have an Inaki Williams who could even get behind the defense and do something. But they for some reason, bafflingly, Luis Enrique taking a smaller squad to the Euros and leaving guys who could be factors at home. So Spain definitely going to have to pick this up going forward. Let's get back into it, Greg. Netherlands 3, Ukraine 2. Before that goal from Patrick Schick, Yarmolenko with another stunner for Ukraine to bring them back into that game. Netherlands eke out that victory through Dumfries, but what did you make of both the Netherlands and the Ukraine? I thought I saw a lot more fight from Ukraine than I expected, and maybe a little bit less of the defensive solidity from what I expected from the Dutch.
Honestly, I came out of that game impressed with both sides, to be very frank. Ukraine, I had told you in our preview, I definitely expected them to do big things in this group. I think they're going to progress. They demonstrated great fight coming back from 2 goals down and turning that game on its head. Obviously, it was unfortunate in the way that they conceded a late winner, but they did what they needed to do. They kept the game close. They scored goals. They'll be fine. As soon as they, if they could get the job done against the other two teams in this group, and I fully expect them to. I have complete faith that Ukraine will progress. They did what they needed to do against the Netherlands. For the Dutch, I think it's easy to say this, but De Ligt was a huge miss at the back. I know he'll be coming back from injury soon. They'll only get better with him there. Frankie De Jong, an absolute masterclass in the middle of the pitch. I thought he was sensational. Memphis Depay, you need that type of performance from your star forward, and he delivered. So I think some encouraging signs from this Dutch team that everyone kind of looked at their roster and said, they have the talent. Can they put it all together? Is it a tournament too soon? I think it might be. I think their inexperience showed in relinquishing that 2-goal lead against an equally solid Ukraine side. I'm not taking anything away from them, but when you're in that scenario, you have to manage the game better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they necessarily have the experience to. They had Stecklenburg in nets. I just Wijnaldum in the middle of the park. I guess he's their cooler head. He's their older head. But at the end of the day, Frank de Boer, again, I'm leaving that game with more questions and answers on de Boer about his management.
I didn't even want to bring up his name because I knew you were just going to do it yourself. But, yeah, go ahead.
He's just got, game management. That's all I want to see from the Dutch for the rest of this group stage. If they could do that, of course they'll live up to that, their hype. But game management, guys, that's all it takes. You have the talent. Manage the situations better. And they'll go just as deep as everyone expects them to.
And a nice left-footed finish from the new Paris Saint-Germain midfielder, Jorginho Wijnaldum, spurning his his former national team coach at Barcelona to go to PSG. That's something maybe we'll touch on after the Euros when the transfer showdown of what is going to happen this offseason. Erling potentially moving, Jadon Sancho likely moving. Who knows what's going to happen with Kylian Mbappe, and looks like he's going to have a hell of a tournament as well. Portugal 3, Hungary 0. Do the Hungarians hate Cristiano Ronaldo more than Cristiano Ronaldo hates Coke?
I don't know about that. Every time he would touch the ball, I know they would boo him and I know they'd spur him on, but I think the line between love and hate is a fine line, and I think they respect his talent. They understand that, like Puskas before him, the arena's named after him. He's a legendary player, one of the best to ever play the game, breaks all kinds of records. So yes, he condemns your team to a heavy defeat, even if on the balance of play it was harsh. They might boo him, but I do think they respect him. He definitely hates him more.
Just looking at this game, though, Greg, all credit to the Hungarians. They put in way more of a shift than even for me. They're 3-3 with Portugal the last Euros, where that was a shock to everybody. But I think that I was just kind of shocked by the amount that the commitment that they had to the cause. They were all over the Portuguese. I don't think Portugal were even willing or able to think that that was going to be the fourth team in this group of death, and they gave them all that they could handle. For me, I just don't understand the decision playing against a Hungarian team that, like you said, similar to what Spain was doing with Sweden. You decide to play William Carvalho and Danilo Pereira, two holding midfielders in front of the back line. And Hungary did pose some questions of the Portuguese back line, but I think that they could definitely have gotten this game wrapped up a little bit earlier if you throw a Moutinho or even a Ruben Neves in there, just someone to push up a little bit higher up the pitch. Instead, it felt like Carvalho and Pereira sat back there for hours, and finally they were like, oh yeah, by the way, we're drawing this game now in the 80th minute. We might as well throw some guys on there to try and get something to happen, and luckily it did. But I thought the result was harsh on Hungary. Orban basically gets credited with a known goal after a deflection from a Rafael Guerrero strike in the box. And then Cristiano Ronaldo, moments later, tucks away his Euro-leading 10th goal in that competition as well. Now, then I thought that he was offside for the third one, personally, but it doesn't really matter in the end. I think that Portugal were lucky in the end, because they looked very, very unconvincing for about 75 minutes of that match, and the 3-0 scoreline flatters them. But now they can kind of have a sigh of relief and, to me, go up against the German side, where I think that they're counterattacking with someone like Diogo Jota or something could actually kind of bear fruit, where I think that they were just lost as to how to break down the Hungarians, and in the end, a little slice of luck to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think why Fernando Santos, anyone who knows Portuguese football or just the Portuguese national team and Fernando Santos, everyone knows he's a pragmatic coach. Everyone knew going into the tournament this would be the setup. Two solid defensive mids, Bruno Fernandes ahead of them, and that's how they're going to play. Obviously, against a team like Hungary, rather than against France or Germany, you would have liked to see a player like Renato Sanchez start that game and give that dynamism in midfield. As soon as he came on, that game switched on its head completely. At the end of the day, he'll say that he got the job done. They got the 3 goals with a slice of luck. If you will play these physical number 6s in Danilo Pereira and William Carvalho on the pitch, at least make the most of their qualities. Drop one in between the center backs. Send Guerrero flying down the left wing. Send Semedo flying down the right wing. We're talking about the Borussia Dortmund man. Guerrero opened the scoring, albeit with a heavy deflection. He is sensational when playing as a left wing back. As a left back, you're limiting him. So if you're going to have those big physical midfielders on the pitch, at least give him the freedom to get forward. So that's all I'm asking from Fernando Santos, because at the end of the day, he will do what he wants. He will play with those number 6s for the rest of the tournament. Do I think Renato Sanchez deserves to start ahead of Danilo Pereira? 100%. It's not going to happen. So the next best thing is make the most of the team that will play and send Guerrero flying in support of Diogo Jota down there, and you're going to completely overwhelm teams with that left-hand side.
And Rafael Guerrero can do just as good of a job in the midfield if they wanted to do that as well, but that's probably not going to happen either, because like you said, he's going to stick to his formation. Match day 1 wrapped up with the greatest 1-0 I've seen in a tournament in quite some time, Greg. It was the game everyone was waiting for, France versus Germany. France get through off of a own goal from Mats Hummels, who kind of redeemed himself a little bit later with the tackle of the tournament on Kylian Mbappe. Probably, if you would have gone to VAR, probably would have been given as a penalty, but in the end, Mats Hummels gets away with it. But Germany could have really used Robert Lewandowski. Watching that game. Oh, man. But the French, before we get over to the Germans, the French superiority, I mean, it just looks like with kind of, they seem like difficult personalities together, but when Antoine Griezmann is putting in a shift at left midfield and tracking guys back to the byline, and N'Golo Kante allows Paul Pogba to not think about defense at all and just run the game offensively, I mean, you're kind of watching it, and as much as I think that maybe Digne should be in over Lucas Hernandez, and you can kind of play with little tinkering parts of their lineup, there's a reason why they are the favorites.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there with Didier Deschamps getting these guys to buy into his system. Obviously, they're coming off a World Cup win, so it's always easy to just point to your past success and say, guys, buy in, we'll be European champions again. At the end of the day, I think what the French national team and what Didier Deschamps have proven to us, and proven to me at least, is that international football, rather than club football, it's more so the importance of having the right profiles on the field rather than having the best talent on the pitch. That's what matters at the end of the day. You mentioned Kante. Obviously, at club level, he doesn't sit that deep, but in playing there and just mopping up and, playing, doing the dirty work in the midfield, Paul Pogba dominated that midfield. Toni Kroos and Ilkay Gundogan did not have an answer for him. He was sensational. Antoine Griezmann, Kylian Mbappe, Karim Benzema, it's like they've been playing together their whole careers. The little fancy flicks, the overlapping runs, the intricate movement. You don't know who to mark, where to mark them. They're all over the place. They're deadly on the counter. A guy like Griezmann, you see him play for France, and you really think of the Griezmann that made a name for himself with Real Sociedad and Atletico Madrid, completely buying into Diego Simeone's system, playing almost as a midfielder towards the end. I saw him fly into at least 4 or 5 different slide tackles in the space of 10 minutes in that second half. Really sets the tempo. And with Varane and Kimpembe back there, hardly putting a foot wrong, shielded by arguably the best midfielder in the tournament, it's really hard to see any team beat them. Rabiot himself had a great game. The fullbacks had a great game. The only thing I will mention is that UEFA's concussion protocol is a complete joke.
I mean, how does Benjamin Pavard stay on the pitch? I mean, he's clearly concussed. He's clearly potentially knocked out. He even admitted it afterwards that he doesn't remember 10 to 15 seconds after that fly in from Gosens at the back post. I mean, they have more than enough people who can play right back for the French team that Benjamin Pavard can miss that second half. But yeah, like you said, just kind of embarrassing and not only that, UEFA and FIFA are insisting that they're taking concussions and head injuries incredibly seriously because of older footballers getting dementia, the way that they are. And then you watch that happen, and you know that is just full lip service.
Then give teams a free substitution for a concussion. It's that simple. If Deschamps doesn't have to worry, maybe he didn't take him out because he worries that, it might alter the balance of the team. Pavard's there for a reason. But secondary implication of taking off Pavard is, wow, I just burnt a sub. I get you 5 subs, but just make a free concussion sub. It's really not that difficult. Put your money where your mouth is, UEFA, and get that concussion sub implemented. Same thing goes for how they handled the Christian Eriksen case. It hasn't been a great opening match day for UEFA. If I had to pick the biggest loser of this opening match day, I know teams lost and I know teams picked up some heavy defeats, but it's 100% UEFA.
Germany, I mean, what can you say? I don't know what Joachim Low is doing tactically. I'm okay with you starting Thomas Muller, but when he's done nothing for 60 minutes, it might be time to throw somebody out there who can actually score a goal or make a chance happen or something like that. He's done it before, but I'm not expecting the Miroslav Klose rejuvenation from Thomas Muller at this tournament. Not only that, like you said, the way that the midfield was getting bossed, I don't think that they'll have to deal with that something like that against Portugal. But if you're going up against another top-class midfielder, might be a time to take Joshua Kimmich in from right back, put him in the midfield, and actually give you someone who can not only win tackles but keep the ball at the same time. Toni Kroos and Ilkay Gundogan, that's just not their game. They can keep the ball, but when it comes to defending and getting the ball back, it's just not who they are. I thought that they were okay for large portions. They pushed hard at the end, but without anyone who's a real target man or someone who can really threaten up front, whether that was Werner or Gnabry, who spurned a glorious volley chance that was really their only chance of the game. I wonder how the balance of midfield, or maybe playing Toni Kroos a little bit higher up the pitch. I'm not exactly sure how you do it, but for Germany to have spent 40 minutes of that match trying to break down France and not really laying a glove on them whatsoever kind of makes me a little bit wary if I'm a German fan going into that next match against Portugal.
Yeah, the only thing I will say, I think it goes back to Joachim Löw trying to put all his best players on the same 11 rather than finding the right balance. He shoehorned some extremely talented forwards in that front three. Kai Havertz not playing in his best position. Thomas Muller not playing in his best position. Gnabry not playing in his best position. When he could have just as easily played a more functional 4-2-3-1. Obviously, you wouldn't have gotten the best out of Robin Gosens, but at the end of the day, they looked completely toothless in attack. Might as well start playing your players where they thrive. The same thing extends to that midfield too. None of Toni Kroos and Ilkay Gundogan are going to do that dirty work. Toni Kroos thrives at Real Madrid because he has Casemiro mopping up behind him.
Talk about dirty work. Casemiro, the master of the dirty work.
A butcher. He's a butcher out there. And then Germany needs someone to do that. And I do not rate Emre Can at all. I think in the biggest moments, he's just not good enough. But when Pogba is steamrolling your midfield and you need that more physical presence, just to lay down a marker and let them know you're there, put him on there. Put him on there to drop as the 6. Put Kimmich there. The only thing with Kimmich is that he already had a yellow card, so maybe you don't want to get him involved into those battles. But rather than putting your best 11 out there, put your most functional 11 out there. I think that's a lesson that Jogi Löw, maybe he's panicking because he knows it's his final tournament, so he's trying to shoehorn everything all together. It clearly shows that it's not their best 11. I fully expect them to make some significant alterations going into that Portugal game. They absolutely need it. Whether it's Timo Werner whether it's an actual winger like Leroy Sané playing out on the wing. I know he didn't have the best of cameo appearances, but he's an actual winger. Might as well play him there. Gnabry's a right winger. Play him there. That's all I ask from Jogi Love. And honestly, given how much he's panicking, how much is back against the wall, I think he's going to make some serious changes against Portugal.
The final thing I'll say on this matchup was Kylian Mbappe is pretty fast. Pretty fucking fast, Greg. I mean, really, there were moments where he just made everybody look like they were in slow motion. I mean, again, I don't know if John Henry, who's going through some rather important public relations nightmares in Liverpool right now, you cook up some deal with Nike to get Kylian Mbappe to Liverpool, and all will be forgiven. And also, to your point about Joachim Low, you saw Hansi Flick, the next German manager, sitting right behind him in the dugout. I was just imagining Hansi Flick in his mind being like, I would not play this. This is not what I would do. Put Florian Neuhaus, somebody else out there to do something in the middle of the park because, they were getting torpedoed. We'll be back on Sunday on the Footy Pod to recap match day 2, some of the bigger games to look at. Denmark versus Belgium, England versus Scotland, Portugal versus Germany. Denmark-Belgium is Thursday at noon. England-Scotland is Friday at 3, and Portugal-Germany is Saturday at noon. One final word, though, Greg. Canada through to 2022 World Cup qualification for the first time in a very long time, since 1997, off a horrendous miss by the Haitian goaltender, who will be sadly mocked probably more than David Marshall for the rest of time. As a keeper yourself, how many times has that happened to you, Greg?
Never. Keep your eye on the ball.
What a liar. What a liar. I'm sure it's happened multiple times.
I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't lie on the Footy Pod. The ball has never rolled under my foot in a meaningless game, in an important game. What are you doing, Duverger? I know you're a Montreal native. And you want to see Cat. No, I'm kidding. But he shouldn't have played. He shouldn't have played because their actual goalkeeper, who had a phenomenal first game, was unable to enter the country. And that's the major storyline there. But what a howler. I've never seen anything like that.
And not only that, now that Canada are progressing, they're going to have to go up against, it's going to be tough. They're going to have to be third in that group. It probably comes down to Canada versus Costa Rica for me if I'm the Canadians. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because they haven't exactly played all that well against the Panamas and the Hondurases of the world. But when you have a front three of Larin, David, and Davies, something you've really never had if you're a Canadian football fan, for them to be going just into these qualification rounds in September with those three guys up front, it at least gives you a chance. And I'm very bullish on this team. I don't think they'll qualify this year, but I think this is the platform for them to really kind of build towards something in 2026.
No, absolutely. I think it's important that, their schedule came out, and it's a pretty congested schedule. There's going to be a lot of games in quick succession. And I heard Herdman speak about it today on TSN, saying something like, we're going to need all hands on deck. And I think that's absolutely important. You look at a guy like Zachary Broguillard, who didn't really play a significant role over this two-legged affair. He could definitely play. In nets, you have at least 3-4 goalkeepers who could get the job done, whether it's Sinclair, Pantemis, Borjan, Crépeau at home.
For the love of God, put Crépeau in. Put Crépeau in. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. The major question marks, obviously, with this team are down the spine of the team, which is pretty unfortunate. At center back and at center midfield, who's going to step up? Is it going to be Eustáquio? Is it going to be Piet? Is it going to be Marc-Anthony Kai? I think that the LAFC man's going to have a big qualifying campaign in the Hex games for Canada to qualify. I don't think it would be fair to say that they're absolutely the favorite to progress with USA and Mexico, because at the end of the day, you have Costa Rica, you have Honduras, you have all these teams that just understand CONCACAF better, have earned their stripes in CONCACAF, and I think just the atmosphere of these of games in the CONCACAF tournaments is just plays a huge role that we're not taking into consideration here. So to put it, and pardon my French here, but Canada's going to have to learn how to shithouse if they're going to get through they're going to have to learn the time-wasting tactics, the delayed ball boys, everything in they're going to have to whip out everything in their arsenal to qualify for that World Cup. They have the talent. Still some question marks remain, though.
Yeah, maybe against those games against Mexico and the U.S., you can play Alphonso Davies at left back. Other than that, don't fucking do it. Don't you dare do it. And yeah, brick shithousery is exactly what I would like from Canada going forward. But hey, get bullish behind this Canadian team. The first time since 1997 that this is happening. So they're going to host it in 2026 anyways. They'll be there. So this is kind of a stepping stone for the Canadians. That is it for the Footy Pod. We've gone well over. We're probably going to be canceled by the powers that be because of how much we fit into this. But match day 1 at the Euros is done. Match day 2 is underway. Russia won this morning. Greg, I haven't seen what happened between Wales and Turkey so far.
So Wales up 1-0, 87th minute. Gareth Bale missed the penalty shot. Demiral just got a header save. Huge result for Wales if it stands. I'm impressed. I really like them as my team.
And later today, it's Italy versus Switzerland. We'll both have a keen eye on that. Until next time, Greg, thank you very much. And from all of us here at the Footy Pod, ciao for now.